Hey guys, welcome back to Jess Reads Romance. I'm Jess and today I'm going to be talking about the books I want to read in August, and August is a very exciting time because there is a readathon going on that I'm participating in. I'm very excited about it. I've actually done a similar readathon in April. Unfortunately, I never did my April wrap up, so I never really talked about the big readathon that I did in April, which was called Realmathon. The one that I'm doing in August is the Romance Readathon, and I'm very excited about it. It's kind of set up in a similar way to Realmathon, and this is the first year that it's happening, so it's very exciting. It has a historical theme to it, and I'm gonna get into all that a little bit later in the TBR video, but just know that all the books that I will be reading in August will be contributing to this readathon because it's not specific to historical romance. You can read outside of the historical romance subgenre and still get points for those books. So I am going to heavily lean on historicals, but there are plenty of others that are not historicals that I plan on reading. So let's start off with the podcast books, which I always start off with, and you get the first hint as to what books we're going to be reviewing in August. September, not August, because these have not been announced yet at all. So this is the first time you'll be hearing about it. The books that we'll be reviewing in September, which I will be reading for this month, we like to do our episodes early in case we have a conflict for scheduling recording the podcast. I never want to be in a bind where I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't have any cushion episodes. So, and all of these books I have read before, so they will be rereads. Get Thee Off My Lawn by Daria Vernon. This is a novella, cute historical romance that I read, I think last year or maybe even early this year, and I'm very excited to see what Juliet thinks about this one. It was super cute, and I do plan on reading more Daria Vernon in the future. The Coldest Winter by Brittany Cherry. I absolutely love this book. This was definitely, I think it was a book I read in April, which again, I've never talked about, so I'm glad that I'll be rereading it. I will be rehashing The Coldest Winter, or maybe I read it in March. I can't remember, but I really love this book. Very emotional. Brittany Cherry often writes very emotional books, which she's just so good at it. Forever Your Rogue by Erin Langston. This is a new to me author that I just discovered this year. Crystal was the first one to pick this up, and I really enjoyed it. Very excited to read this one for the podcast as well. And Rootbound by Tara DeWitt. I debated on whether or not I wanted to put Funny Feelings on the podcast. It's the one that I discovered first. Thanks to the recommendation of Caitlin and Witty, they really loved Funny Feelings, and I really love that one as well. But I also really love Rootbound, and it's one of her older books, or one of the first ones that she published, because I think she may only have 3 out, but I really like that one. I think that the beginning of it is very interesting, and so I decided to put that one on the podcast instead. So those are the podcast books that I will be rereading. And now for the Patreon picks. So each month my patrons give book suggestions. I put it on a big spinner wheel, and then I spin to see what books I'm going to be reading. And so this month the spinner wheel picked 2 very different books. One of them is historical, which I'm very glad for because I feel like not a lot of people are reading too many historical romances anymore, and that's a big change. Like within the past 2 years, I feel like everyone was super obsessed with historical romance. Back then it was a huge part of the community, and I just want to, I don't know, lift historical romance up a little bit. So I'm glad that this readathon has a historical theme. So that one is The Perfect Rake by Anne Gracie. I've never read this author before. I'm very glad that this book was suggested. The synopsis sounds really interesting. And then also Haunting Adeline. So I honestly debated on whether or not to put this one on the spinner wheel because I technically tried to read this book a few months ago, earlier this year, and I DNF'd within the first chapter. I just was like, I don't think that this book will be for me, and so I didn't want to try further. But since it was a patron that recommended it to me and wanted me to try it out, I was like, okay, fine. Since I really didn't get that far in, it was a very early DNF, I'm gonna put it on the spinner wheel, and it just so happened to spin for it this month. So I can't say that I'm excited about reading Haunting Adeline. I don't think that it's going to work for me, but I'm also a little bit curious because I feel like it has a cult following. Everyone that I've seen talk about Haunting Adeline has said nothing but praise about the hero being a really good, dark, villainous hero. Anti-hero, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I'm open. I do have the Mystic Box editions. They recently did the duet because it is the cat and mouse duet. So I do have those editions. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I'm trying to be open-minded about it, but it's a little bit hard. I can't lie. It's a little bit hard because I've already sampled the first chapter, which I wasn't meshing well with, but we'll see in that vlog how that goes. Then I have a couple of new releases that I'm really excited about. The first one I'm going to talk about is An Earl to Remember by Stacey Reid. I do have an arc for this one. It does not release until August 22nd, but I do want to read this one early on in the month since it's an arc, because I do want to get my review out there, and I'm very excited. Huge fan of Stacey Reid. She's one of my favorite historical romance authors. She's already written one this year that has been one of my favorites for the year, The Wolf and the Wildflower, which I absolutely loved. And An Earl to Remember is actually, I was surprised about this because I don't feel like, or at least from my understanding when she first announced this book, I thought it was going to be a standalone, but it's actually connected to A Matter of Temptation, and she renamed, I guess like she made this a series, and it's called The Unforgettable Love series, and this is the second book, so it's connected to A Matter of Temptation. I don't think you have to read A Matter of Temptation because I believe that this hero is just friends with the hero from book one, so you can read it as a standalone if you want. But I'm just very curious because A Matter of Temptation is one of my favorite Stacey Reid, so I'm very excited about An Earl to Remember. It's definitely like my top most anticipated read for this month. Then it released today, because I am filming this on August 1st, Unravel Me by Becka Mack. This is the third book in the Playing for Keeps series. It's a hockey romance series, and I did enjoy books 1 and books 2. I had a little bit of nitpicky things to say about some of the writing aspects that didn't, or it's like pet peeves that bothered me really. So, but I'm still very interested in the characters. And this hero, Adam, has been in the background from books 1 and books 2, and he had like the most awful girlfriend that he had been with since high school, and basically since he's made it big in the NFL. Like, she's just not been great. And so now he's going to get his HEA with somebody hopefully worthy of Adam. But he was such a cute, like adorable character in the background that I just was like, this man has got to get his HEA. He has got to dump this horrible woman who does not deserve him at all, is taking advantage of him. Like, I need to see him happy, and I'm so happy that he was always planned to get an HEA, and so I'm very excited to read Unravel Me. The next one is Hideaway Heart by Melanie Harlow, the second book in her Cherry Tree Harbor series. I did like the first book in this series. It was like a nanny romance, single dad romance, and I actually don't know the tropes for this one. I just really enjoyed the first one, and I was like, I'm definitely going to read the rest of the series. I like Melanie Harlow's small town. All of them are small town romances, but I'm very excited about continuing with the Cherry Tree Harbor series and possibly seeing our hero and heroine for book 1 in the background, so love that. And then I actually saw Christy, who made a post about August new releases, and I really wasn't aware that this was going to be released in August, but it's called The Lovely Return by Carrie and Cole, and this is going to be like a standalone. From what I know about it, it's going to be a standalone, and I had no idea that it was being released in August. Now, Carrie and Cole has written some of my favorite books of all time, but I feel like the most recent releases of hers I've had issues with them. They haven't resonated as much as Torn and Tied, which are basically just some top tier romances that I love to talk about. She does, at least Torn and Tied, she does age gap so well in those books. They're taboo and forbidden. They have forbidden aspects in them, and I just fell in love with the way that she handled it. And I think that since I have such high expectations from Torn and Tied being some of my favorite books ever, I want to feel like those same feelings for her new releases, which are all basically age gaps as well. And this one I believe is an age gap too. Let's see, it says Forbidden Love, age gap, second chance. Oh, interesting. I don't know how I feel about this one. Reincarnation? I'm not the biggest fan of reincarnation tropes. I don't like them because then you're battling against if you knew this person in the past. And how does that work? Is this fantasy? It's contemporary? Like, did they know are they gonna have their memories from their past life? Because then there's like almost competing characters. It's the person that you used to know, if you have memory of their old personality, and if they're completely different in this new life, then sometimes it doesn't always work for me. A little iffy about that. Happy ending, sweet and spicy, grumpy sunshine, plot twist. Okay. If the plot twist is reincarnation, I mean, she just kind of told it to me, but maybe there's more plot twists than just reincarnation. I don't know. I'm going to try it out because, I don't know. I have like a sense of loyalty. Like, I'm always hoping that the next book that she releases is going to be a heavy hitter like Torn and Tied were for me. So I always want to try her new books, but I'm also very hesitant when I pick up one of her new releases now. but I still want to try it out. I'm still going to try it out and see how it goes. Okay, so now we come to the other books that I want to read, and again, all of these books are going to count towards the Romance Readathon. Let me talk about the Romance Readathon just a little bit, give you some background. So Maggie from Maggie's Books and Stuff, she created this readathon, and there's different teams. I'm part of the Wallflowers. That's the team that I resonated with, and I decided to align with them. And my character that I will be following is Miss Sophia Herrera. She is an artist who is sweet and kind and secretly passionate. She lives her life along the edge of the ball, noticing every intimate action on the dance floor. Couples waltzing too close, a kiss on the palm, whisper in the ear. Instead of daring to live these scenes herself, she paints them in the solitude of her room. So she's an artist, she paints all these scenes. And I really like that, and honestly, I love wallflower romances. I like the quiet, shy heroine, and a lot of these wallflower romances tend to be like opposites attract, another one of my favorite tropes. So I was just like, I'm definitely a wallflower. I would love to read and be a part of the wallflower team. So Wallflowers. There's also the Hoyden, the Blue Stocking, the Protector, and the Seductress. Yes, those are the teams. A lot of my friends are actually on the Seductress team, so it'll be very interesting. And all the books, they are worth points. You fill out a Google form and it calculates the points for you. And at the end of the month, your heroine that you are aligned with, she gets her HEA. And I think the amount of points that you contribute to your team dictates who she ends up with. And I think that the more points you have, like the higher up in the echelon of like nobility your hero or your heroine is for the love interest. So I'm very excited. I want Miss Sophia Herrera to get a Duke, so that's my goal. That's my goal for this readathon. But I'll put some links down below if you want to check out this readathon and join it. It's not too late to join if you want to. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. You don't have to just read historical romance. Any romance counts towards this readathon. You just get extra points if you do read some historical romances, which is why I'm trying to curate a lot of historical romances. So before I get into those, there's a couple that aren't historical. The Resonant Surge by Nalini Singh. This actually released last month, and it was on my last month's TBR, but it released later on in the month. I'm still waiting for my hold in the library so that I can read it, and people have been very slow with reading this book, so hopefully, fingers crossed, this book will be available to me to be able to read it this month. I'm very excited. It's a long-running series in the Psy Changeling series. I just want to read it already, okay? I just want my hold to become available. So Resonant Surge is on there. That's not a historical romance. And then I have like, I'm gonna count these towards historical romance. The Basilisk of Star Manor and Sanctuary with Kings by Catherine Moon. These are fantasy romances, but it's also very historical, like Edwardian, Victorian time. So it's like a hybrid romance, a historical fantasy, and I'm really excited about that. The Basilisk of Star Manor is actually a novella that was published a while ago, and I never got the chance to read it, and I want to read that one before the Sanctuary with Kings. I think they have, you know, those characters will appear again. I don't think it's necessary, but I just want to, and it's a novella, so why not? But yeah, all of these books in the series, except for the novella, are reverse harem fantasy romances with monsters. So Wild Time. I really liked the previous books in the series. Book 2 is my favorite. The Company of Fiends was just, I loved it. Such interesting monster heroes, honestly. And I'm a fan of Catherine Moon, so we're gonna read those. I also have a couple of books that have just been sitting on my Kindle waiting to be read, and I just haven't gotten to them yet. These historical romances that I'm very interested in, but just, again, haven't found the time to read them yet, so I put them on this month's TBR. The first one is The Devil Wears Plaid by Teresa Medeiros. I absolutely love Teresa Medeiros. I've read, she has a vampire historical romance called After Midnight, which was so good, and I really love that one. I've also read, I think it's called Charming the Prince, which is more of a medieval historical romance that I really liked, very interesting. So The Devil Wears Plaid, it's actually on KU, and I snagged it a while ago, and I'm just very interested. I want to read that one. I want to read more Teresa Medeiros. She has an extensive backlist. Then Not That Duke by Eloisa James. I love Eloisa James, and I don't know why I haven't read this book yet, because it's been out for a while, but this is the month that we're going to get to this. I also really like the cover for this one. It's a little bit more of a modern historical romance cover, but I'm still digging it. I really like it. Of course, I mean, I always love historical romances have so many covers with redheaded heroines, and I just love that for them. I love a good redhead. This book, Stealing the Duke by Lexi Post, I've actually seen Lexi Post like a lot, but I've actually never tried any of her books, so I'm going to attempt to read a couple of new to me authors during this readathon. Lexi Post is one of them. I have a couple of other ones too that might be alternatives. These are just hopefuls. I hopefully will get to all of them this month, but who knows if I will. I'm also a notorious mood reader, so that's why I'm gonna have like alternates as well. A Day Until Forever by Erin Langston. So this is the same author that we're reviewing Forever Your Rogue for the podcast. And this one I believe is the older brother of the hero in book 1. And I always felt like he had a romance, and I think that this is his book. So I have that one on my Kindle. And then this whole shelf behind me is full of historical romances, and a lot of them I haven't ever read. A lot of them are old school historical romances. A couple of years ago, there was a huge movement where people were getting these mystery eBay boxes from bookstores, and it was just full of just random historical romances. So I got a ton of them from that, and also just I was actively searching for beautiful historical romance covers. So I grabbed a couple of them here. So this one is one I'm most excited for. It's To Love a Dark Lord by Anne Stewart. I've actually read the House of Rohan series by Anne Stewart like years ago, before I even really got into reading historical romances. That's probably one of the first ones, maybe right after I read Julia Quinn and I was kind of just searching. I read The House of Rohan, which is kind of like, has a darker theme to it, and I really like those. I haven't read those in years though. But yeah, this book, again, a redhead. I mean, just let's admire how beautiful this cover is. I can't remember who I saw originally had this book, but they posted a picture a while back on Bookstagram, and I was like, I need this cover. So this one's just been sitting pretty on my shelf, and I think I have to read it. So apparently in this storyline, our heroine committed this crime, and she's going to be punished for it, but then there's this like Irish lord that decides to maybe sort of marry her to save her from ruin, but he's also apparently indifferent towards her, and it aggravates her. So I don't know. We will see what this one's about. I'm just kind of going in blind, and I'm just really wanting to read that. Then I have a Donna Fletcher. I've only read one Donna Fletcher before, but this one, The Angel and the Highlander, was a book that I did receive in one of the mystery boxes, and I really love this cover as well. I just think it's very beautiful, kind of like very classic old school historical romance. I think that her dress is just beautiful, and I love the midnight dark stormy looking night in the background. Like, it's just giving me some vibes that I'm absolutely loving. So this heroine is actually in a nunnery. She is a lady, and I can't remember why she's in the nunnery. I don't know if it says. Oh yeah, her father tried to marry her off and she was like not having it, so she goes to a nunnery, and now she's going under Sister Therese, and her name is Alice, and her father has tasked this man, this Highlander, to go find his daughter. And so he goes to the nunnery, and I think he's starting to fall for Sister Therese, and he doesn't know that this is Alice. So I'm like, I'm here for it. I love this secret identity type of romance, so I'm excited to read this one. I don't know why I thought that these were the same author. Dropping them. I don't know why I thought these two books were the same author, just because one of them's titled Elf King's Lady and this one's The Tarnished Lady. They're two different authors, because I was like, I'm gonna pick one of them. But now, I don't know, I guess I'm gonna have to pick both. Originally, I picked up the Elf King's Lady because I believe Elf King is actually a stallion. Like this beautiful white stallion that the hero wants. So it says they're feuding Scottish clans of the Highlands, which I love a good Highlander, you know, feud romance. And the heroine, these are also some very interesting names. Emil is the heroine and Parlin is the hero, and she is taken captive by a feuding clan. But I think the reason why she was taken captive is because he actually wanted her horse, because she has this beautiful white stallion, and he's like, absolutely, I want that horse. I might as well take the lady too. Who knows? I think it might be a bonkers plot, but I'm excited for it, and I just really love this like old school classic cover. And then this storyline really intrigued me when I picked up this book, thinking that I was gonna pick one of them because they were the same author. They're not. This is by Sandra Hill, and this one's called The Tarnished Lady, another really beautiful classic historical romance cover. And this one is actually, I may be most excited for this one other than the Anne Stewart. This one has an interesting plot line. I was really intrigued when I read the synopsis in the back. So our heroine, Lady Edith, she gets pregnant out of wedlock. She's disgraced, and she decides to become a beekeeper and just kind of live her life in solitude. But then I think the father of her child child comes back into the picture, maybe trying to take her land and just like paint her in a bad light because she's a woman who had a child and she wasn't married. And in order to rot this asshole who got her pregnant, another man offers to marry her. His name is Eric, and I think her baby daddy is like his rival, and so he agrees to marry her to basically stick it to him. And I'm just very excited about this one because it's like, you know, a marriage of convenience, and she's a single mom, she's disgraced, and you know, I just can't wait. I'm very excited about this one. So those are all the books that I'm officially putting on my TBR. Again, I have some alternates that I do have on my Kindle, so we'll see. I'm a mood reader, we'll see which strikes my fancy, but I'm very excited about all of the physical books that I picked out off of my shelf. I really do need to start reading more from this shelf because I have just so many old school historical romances that I'm just very intrigued by. Okay, so that's it for my August TBR. I will be keeping you updated with what I'm going to be reading on my Instagram stories and how I'm contributing to the Romance Readathon, which I think is just such a fun idea. And I hope that there will be more Romance Readathons like this one that Maggie's going to create for next year, maybe a different theme. I think it would be really cool because the readathon that I participated in April, which I'll also link that one down below, Covers with Cassidy was the one to create this readathon called Realmathon, and they were different genres of fiction. So it was like horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and romance, and those were the 4 different groups, teams that you could be a part of. And I honestly think it would be really fun for a future romance readathon to separate teams based on subgenres of romance, like contemporary, fantasy, sci-fi, and historical. Like that would be a really fun future one, and you would have to align with like one of your teams and get extra points if you read within your subgenre that you're aligned with, but still get points if you want to read a contemporary during that month. Anyway, I just think that these types of readathons with like teams and point systems, it's just a good time. I had an amazing time with the Realmathon one, and it was so well run. So anyway, I have high hopes for this one. That's all for me. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to get notified on any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with a little HEA. Bye guys.